the design tab, so where you can configure the report layout. And then we have the preview tab or the preview page where you can use live data to have a preview of the report we have created. For that, we can decide which tag we want, which batch we want to use to get this live data, and then we can just refresh the page so that we get a preview of the report there with all of the information. And based on this preview, we can, for example, change the design again so that we have all of the information we need and that it looks like in the way we want it to have. So we'll close that again. We'll close the topology here. Another thing we have talked about yesterday is in the data view, so if I open that one, we remember we can have, if we open the data view, we are asked to which database we want to connect to. If we do not change anything here, just click on OK. We are opening the current runtime database, so that means the database where all of our batches are stored locally in the project. And if we want to open an export database, so remember we have the automatic export into a database, then we can also use this dialog to open the export database, and for that we just select a database file we want to open. So if we click on the button next to the database file, then we can select the database we want to open. So for example, our export database, you click on OK, and if you then confirm this selection with OK, then the export database is opened. So I will cancel that one and go back to the runtime database at the moment. And if we select OK, then the runtime database is opened with all of the batches we have created inside of this project, where we now can have a manual export to a database, manual export to HTML, to PDF, to an XML file. We can print out these reports manually if we want to. We can also open the report editor to edit our reports or our report layouts. And another thing we can do inside of the data view, we have not only the batch, but also have the trend curve available. And in the trend curve, we can configure the trends we want to see in the diagram here for further analyzing, for example. And to create this diagram here, we have the configuration. So using this button here, if you click on that one, we open the configuration. We can run through all of these tabs to configure the diagram so that we can see the data afterwards. Important thing, so if you just leave everything at default and then just want to see some curves here, we can go to the curves, add a new curve, rename the curve so that we know which data we can see here in this curve, then add the curve control point, so which tag you want to select to be displayed inside of this diagram. Then events, we can also configure which events we want to see in the same diagram here. So after we have configured the trends, or we have configured the diagram with that we can see some data, we can use the toolbar here of the trend curve to do some things with this curve. So for example, as I just mentioned yesterday, we have a list at the bottom here where we can get some more information. So for example, if we open or if we enable the tooltips, we can get some further information about the alarms or about the snapshots here, or just about some more information about the curve we have displayed inside of this diagram. We can move the curve, for example, using that one here. We can also select something. So for example, we can select the phases, and if we go down to the list of all events, we can see that the corresponding entry is then selected after we have selected some of these things here. We can also zoom in and then reset the zoom so that we see everything again. So, and then we have some rulers available here. So if we go back to the curve list, for example, and add the ruler, then we can see the information of this point here. So we see the x value and the y value. And if we add the second ruler to the diagram, we can get some statistics here. So that means we get the information of this point, so the x value and the y value. Where this ruler is located, we get the x value and the y value of where the ruler here is located, and then we get the information of from the first ruler to the second one. So that means we get the minimum, the maximum, average, variance, and so on. We can decide which information we want to see here using the properties of the trend curve. So with that one here, for example, and using this trend curve, we can then analyze the trends here. For example, we can also add another curve or curve from another batch to this diagram so that we can compare the data with each other. For that, we just need another time axis and then add a new batch there, and then configure the curve we want to see. And then we could also use the trend curve to compare two batches with each other, for example. But I think that was everything I have talked about yesterday. So what I wanted to show you before we start with I think you decided that we start with the PM